I had a false belief, and I did this for a decade where I worked every second Saturday, 9 to 5. It was a full day. And my false belief was that if I didn't do it, other people wouldn't do those hours. And the price for that for me was I had young children, as I know you did through your practice ownership. And I just missed a lot of things that my wife covered for me on those days. I never really questioned this belief. I just thought that that was true when I stopped doing it. All right, welcome back to the Scale My Clinic podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have my good friend and partner in crime, Sachin. Welcome, Sachin.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, today we're talking about something that I think many owners will experience, and I'm going to be honest, I think a lot of you are expert in martyrdom. Sachin, when I say the word martyrdom as an owner, what comes to mind for you?
Me. I think might just start with some of the habits and traits that people may exhibit. It might be some, might be all. Like, hands up, I've been in that position as an owner. I'm still have those tendencies. It's a control, not cure. And it's a personal battle for me, for personal growth as well. It's not something, I think, there's lots of crap behind it, upbringing, etc., like all sorts, the stuff that's come behind. But
this is not meant to be. It's not meant to be a therapy session.
Sorry. So what sort of things would show up for an owner would be staying back longer than we might need to. So, we might be consulting 9 till 5. I'm just making those things up. But then we might turn up an hour early. And then when it's about 2:00, all the appointments are full and we know people are turning people away. So then we decide, practice is open till 7. I might just open a few more appointments and help out a little bit. I'll just do that. So that's one common pattern. The next might be, look, everyone's busy. I'll just do it myself. It'll be quicker if I just do it myself. Well, everyone's busy. I don't want to get anyone doing anything. I'll just do it. And then that pattern then leads to some resentment. No one else cares like I do. No one else wants to do it. No one else can do it like I can do it. So now I'll just do it. I won't even bother asking. And then there's more resentment. I'm doing this much. You are only doing that much. That might be verbalized. It might not. It might just be a pressure cooker that just is building within. And then there's stuff around trust. I can't trust anyone to do it. I've handed it over, but it hasn't got done, so I'll just get it done. There's a problem. I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll dive in. I'll fix it. Regardless of whether it's my job or not. And so those are the types of patterns that will often show up.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been scheduled to be off and you've logged in to have a look at what the clinic demand is like and gone in on a day that you're not meant to be working?
I don't think I have. I've done all the steps apart from the go in. But I've done all the steps, but I haven't done the go in. Did you?
Yeah. No, I never did, but I do know doctors who did. I had a false belief, Sachin. I did this for a decade where I worked every second Saturday, 9 to 5. It was a full day. And my false belief was that if I didn't do it, other people wouldn't do those hours. And, the price for that for me was I had young children, as I know you did through your practice ownership. And I just missed a lot of things that my wife covered for me on those days. I never really questioned this belief. I just thought that that was true. When I stopped doing it, guess what happened to the other people working the weekends?
They just did it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I still did it. It was complete bullshit. And it took me that long. And then I opened clinics that I never, ever saw one patient in. And that false belief would have prevented me from doing that. And so that was a big one for me. Look, there's a saying that I'm going to say this and then get you to talk through how it shows up. So one of the famous sayings in business and for busy people is, if it's to be, it's up to me. What do you think about that? When you hear that, how does that make you feel? And is it a useful belief or not particularly useful?
Yeah, I think there's different horses for different courses. So obviously, the patterns of martyrdom, and that if it's to be, it's up to me, is super useful to get you to a certain stage, because it's what helps you roll up your sleeves, get what needs to be done. And so, often in a greenfield, that's actually a really useful strength and a superpower to get you to a certain stage. But there's a lot of irony in life. And so sometimes the very thing that got you to a certain point is the very behavior or superpower which now becomes a super anchor and stops you elevating to the next part of your journey. Because when you behave like that, when I behaved like that, I was robbing those people around me of the chance to be their best and do their best work, which meant, weirdly, we're just in this cycle of stagnation because no one else could do it, because I became the bottleneck. And when we behave in that way, we become the bottleneck to improvement, because everything of meaning or anything that's significant has to go through the bottleneck, the choke point, which is the martyr.
Yeah. Let's talk about you and I now, interview practice owners as they join Project X. So I would say the main reason I say no to people is because they're in this group. They're martyrs and they're working 55, 60, sometimes more hours of consulting per week. They're kind of the main linchpin in the practice. They're typically ignoring any investment in leadership, management, and accountability. They're often super passive in their relationship with their PM. And so these are the ones that I usually say no to. And I know you say no to lots of these as well, because something has to shift in their identity in order for them to get out of the martyrdom. So now that we've described it, if you want to add anything more to the symptomology or the kind of things that those people might be feeling, that then now would be a good time to add that. Let's do that first. Do you think there's anything else that needs to be added to, what does it feel like, or what are the symptoms like? How do you observe it from outside, or what does it feel like from inside?
Yeah, I think from internal, there's probably a fair amount of guilt. Like if I leave when I'm supposed to, or other people are still working and I'm not, then I feel guilty. So I need to address my guilt. That's one key one. Often the other feeling or sentiment is I'm too busy. I don't have time for these other things. Strangely, I'm so busy that I don't have time to do the things that will make me less busy and create less pain. We almost become desensitized to that pain and discomfort. And perhaps there's a cruel enjoyment in that. So I think that certainly shows up. The other thing that shows up is my situation is different. Like it's different here. This is different. You don't understand this place. This place is different. But the reality is that the pattern is the same, just in a different situation. It's not situation specific. It actually is a very common pattern, especially our profession. Most owners are doctors. Most owners are hyper responsible, even if they're not doctors. And therefore, as a clinician, you never walk past when things are not right, because if you walk past, someone could come to significant harm. And so, we are praised for going beyond hours, praised and encouraged to go beyond sometimes even your scope, sometimes beyond your physical or mental or psychological capacity. That is ingrained in us in medical school and in the medical profession. And so it's a badge of honor, but actually it becomes a very heavy badge as we go further, because you start to feel a bit burnt out, a bit resentful, and just generally frustrated. And sometimes head down, bum up. You can't see any opportunity. You can't read, one of our coaches that we've had said, you can't read the label from inside the jar. It becomes like that. You just can't see it. And from the outside, it just appears that to different people. So at the practice, it's often micromanagement. That person, is a micromanager of me. They want everything done like exact, and I have to run everything past them. At home, I imagine it will show up in a whole variety of different ways: irritability, shortness, lack of time, poor relationships, perhaps personal health, physical, psychological. Just last week, I met an owner who, in this situation, just in our 20-minute conversation, started crying and said, look, I really do need to improve my practice, because I need to spend I've been putting off health issues. And I was just like, wow, like, that's not great. Like, regardless of how busy you are or what's going on in your practice, if you're putting off your health issues, that's like very dangerous. And so obviously I said it wasn't suitable for this person to go any further in working with us right now. But I did advise, look, I think we need to hire a locum 1.5, 2 days a week, worry about making the numbers work there, and really invest that time in sorting out your health stuff, because what's the point of anything else if you don't look after yourself? What is the point? So they're probably some of the things I've observed. I don't know if you've seen or experienced others.
Yeah, I remember reading one of Martin Seligman's books, and he talks about learned hopelessness and helplessness, and it is, I think, along those lines. Just another salient example of this is a recent conversation with an owner about joining Project X. Was I usually ask people, what are you having in the way of holidays, and what would you like? It was a really interesting conversation, because this person said 1 to 2 weeks per year is what I manage at the moment. 2 1-week holidays. Couldn't take more than a week off because he felt everything would fall apart. And he was still in daily contact with the practice when he was on holidays. I said to him, what do you want? He said, that's probably okay for me. And I said, you mentioned earlier you've got 2, 3 children. If I rang your partner, what would they say they would like? And then he started crying and said, yeah, actually, that's not right. And I've just accepted that that's right. And it's kind of the realization just dawned on him that, he's missing out on a whole bunch of stuff. And when he does go away, he usually leaves early and the family stays a bit longer without him. Well, I guess it's not really a family if he's not there. You do see the output of this, and I listen to these people, I can relate to it. It's a large part of why you and I built Scama Clinic and decided that we don't want entrepreneurs, which is mostly the audience of doctors that start businesses. We don't want them to pay this price. It's not a reasonable transaction that in return for providing services to your community and employing and engaging GPs in your practice, it's not reasonable that you die an early death and that you get divorced and that you suffer relationship hardness and you have kids that you don't have a relationship with. Like, on what planet is that a reasonable trade-off for a business that isn't even successful? So you don't even have a successful business. You just have the outward appearance of success because you're probably compensating with buying yourself nice things and maybe having some trophy holidays and things. But at the end of the day, what you really need to do is actually accept that you are being a martyr and move on. And I'd love to transition there, Sachin, into, say somebody's listening and thinks, you know what, this sounds a lot like me. Maybe I'll get my partner to have a listen to it and hear what they think of it. Once you accept this, what do you do? What are the ways that you might go about rectifying this streak, this habit of martyrdom?
First of all, I don't think there's like one silver bullet. I think that's the important thing to say. And I suspect, I'll speak from personal experience and observation. I think it's a trait, it's a character trait, and there's probably an imbalance in that trait. And so I think there's a multitude of things to do to rebalance that trait. And I like to think of it as something that's in your tool belt. You might pull it out occasionally to use, but it's not something you just want to permanently be using. And so I think the first thing is becoming aware of it. And then there's probably a whole variety of things that need to happen to address it. I think it starts with, recognition. You can't solve a problem you're not willing to accept.
It's a 12-step process.
Absolutely. And so there may be things at a personal level that you may do. You may go and speak to a psychologist or get some sort of individual coaching about personal behaviors, etc. I think in the business sense, it's because that's where we mainly come from. I think there's definitely personal things that will need to happen because there's an element of personal growth and self-improvement that we would want to work through. And that's part of the journey of life. And business is often linked closely, like a good mirror. Personal life and personal life is often a good mirror of the business life. I think, and from the business point of view, the first thing is a decision. My behavior and the way I'm going about things, it's not right. It's the outcomes and the damage to me as a human is not right. And also that might be affecting my business. I would say it has to start fundamentally at that layer. And then you need to, when you've got and defined and found something that and decided that it needs an improvement, then there's a variety of ways that you might go about improvement. Simple things that in the business is that You got to be clear on what the people's roles in your business are. And there is a fundamental, I think Dan Kennedy said it, everyone's role in the business is to make the owner's life easier. And so you got to accept that, not just say it, but you got to accept that and truly understand that. Your job as a leader is to make it easier for them to do their work and support them and provide the environment and the culture and the tools and the resources to make it easier for everyone to do their job. Their job is to make your life easier as a business owner. So there's a symbiotic relationship there. And so we need to be clear on everyone's roles and responsibilities and clarify what that is. And then we need to actually let people do their job, which means getting out of the way. And then there's a whole variety, of appropriate structures, coaching, support that you would want to access. Project X is one place you can do that, but actual systems and an operating system for your business. So there's some personal operating system stuff that you need to address. And then there's a business operating system that you would want to implement and then follow a regular cadence so that you let the system do the work and let people operate within the system and provide them the support within a structure that's appropriate to allow a business to function well and allow the people to function at their best. It's not easy, and it's lonely because at times of stress, we will often fall back to our natural default behaviors. And so there's great power in being around others who are also working to improve and challenge and reflect. For me, I was talking to my 14-year-old about this recently. I feel like I have this conversation quite a lot because I probably do, which is that reflection is a superpower, like reflecting on how we've gone against our goals, how our behaviors have gone, and then regularly doing that cycle and taking feedback from those that are important around you is important too. But I think, if we're talking business, I think we need to move from from just ad hoc, I'll do all of this, to actual an operating system with roles and accountabilities and some structure and rhythm, and just staying honest to that because it's easier to stick to a rhythm will already alleviate some of the symptoms and problems that are caused. Keen to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. We're talking about moving from reactive to proactive. And one of the things that you talked about, the capacity to reflect and think, that takes time. So what would be your prescription? Because one of the issues here, of course, is these people are often have the habit of overworking. And so that's a pretty blunt instrument. So they'll often have in their head, the business needs my billings to stay afloat. So what do you recommend, Sachin, if they're working 50, 55 hours a week, 60 hours a week, what's the amount of time they need to carve out for this? And what do they do with the work to make sure that they can compensate for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and we've got previous episodes that the number doesn't come to mind, but we'll put the links in the description. But I think that there's two main things. One is that if you don't schedule something, it's never going to happen, or the chance of it happening is way less. If you don't schedule something regularly, the chance of it happening regularly is way less. So the first thing you need to do, after you've made the decision that you've got awareness, then you made a decision that, yeah, I need to do something about this. The third step is then to schedule some time in your calendar. And I would say it needs to be a solid 3 hours uninterrupted a week, at least 2, but ideally 3. And it just needs to be a standard bang. That is what I'm doing. And regardless of the number of clinical hours you're doing, that needs to take precedence and it needs to be blocked to any contact from any patient at all in that time. Then the next thing off the back of that is, your example was 50 hours, say, or 55. Well, you still got 52. And so I'm thinking 3 hour reduction is maybe just under sort of 6%. Say it's about 5 and a bit percent. So then all you have to do is make sure your billings in the rest of the time go up at least 5%, but let's say 10, then you're earning more. That's normally, it could go up 20 even, but they aim for 10, then you're earning more and working less. You're already winning, and the value of that 3 hours is immense, especially when it is stacked week after week after week, because it allows you space to reflect and start to work on the important things, which start to relieve some of that feeling of pressure. And so we'll pop those 2 podcasts. We've done plenty on it, but we'll pop those 2 podcasts about that into the description.
That's awesome, Sachin. So I think there's probably 3 things I'd like people to do with this podcast. The first is, if you think this might be you, I'd really love you to give this to your partner to listen to. If you don't have a partner, give it to one of your close friends and just say, do you identify with any of these traits in me? Because this is a really unpleasant way to go through life. That's probably the main thing that we want you to take away from this. And then the 2 changes that you're going to make are acknowledge that you do need to set aside and protect time for reflection and thinking and just being a better leader, and then having a consideration as to what type of assistance you get with making the positive and proactive changes. One of the things you talked about, Sachin, is with coaching, you're going to be in the right community of people to call you out when they see these behaviors. And certainly you and I received coaching. I know I've been the beneficiary of people saying, you're the problem, buddy. And so I've gone home and gone, actually, I do need to work on this. So we'll put those other shows in the notes section. We'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you, Sachin. I appreciate it. And it's been a great honor having a chat about this particular subject.
Thanks, Todd. I'm going to go polish my halo.
Bye all. See you on the next episode.
Bye-bye.